Hi, anyone? Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay.
Hello.
Apologies. Hi, Esther. Hi, Adija. Thank you for handling the session over there. Our community members at Uganda, welcome, and it's a pleasure to have everyone on the call. My name is Nosa Obano, Membership Officer at African Food Chain Makers, and it's a pleasure to have Esther with us today. This is one of the initiatives we've had earlier this year. We had the previous one in Kenya. And we are grateful for Esther for also having to join us in Uganda and also connect with our Ugandan members. And just before we start, we are a few on the call. It will be good to have us speak. So we would like to have members on the call maybe introduce themselves in less than 1 minute so we can have introductions from everyone. Let's start with our colleagues on site. I can see Adija smiling. So it will be nice to have our ambassador kickstart the session for us today. Over to you, Adija.
Thank you so much, Nosa. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, wherever you are. Good morning. My name is Hadija Nankanja, and I lead the team at Community Women's Enterprise Network, but I'm also the Africa Food Chain Makers Ambassador, Eastern Africa, representing 6 countries. I'm glad to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adija. So let's start with our members on the call as well. We will definitely introduce Esther before she comes in, but let's give the audience our community members to introduce themselves. Danny, please over to you. Kindly unmute and speak.
Yeah, my name is Danny Gotor. I'm the Executive Director of Smart Foods Limited. We're an organic food producer, marketer, and suppliers to the Midwestern region. I am 150 kilometers out of Kampala. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danny. And let's have Julius. Julius, kindly unmute and speak.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name's Terry Julius. I'm the director, Magonga Model Farm. We basically do deal in a lot of products, and we intensify more of our dried products, especially the fruits. And we've just entered the market and trying to learn a lot of how we can improve ourselves through attending such important sessions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julius. I believe your presence in this call will be very important as well. Let's have
I had
Miriam.
a request. I had a request. As people introduce themselves, can they let us know where they are based, if they're where they are based in Uganda, or if they happen to be in another country as well? If anyone's joining, I
Okay,
just be nice to know. Thank you.
okay.
Uh, I'm in Chivale. Chivale is Midwest. It's in the west of Uganda, 170 kilometers out of Kampala.
Okay. Thank you so much, Danny. Danny says he's from Chiba in Uganda. Julius, where are you joining us from?
I'm in Michana. It is just 40 kilometers away from Kampala, Michana. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. Let's have Miriam. Miriam, can you unmute and speak?
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon and sorry, good evening, everyone. I am Miriam Appel. I serve as the CEO for Akeo Uganda Limited. It's a Danish-funded social enterprise working with smallholder farmers to empower them. Basically, we provide them with quality inputs, video trainings through savings groups. I am based in Kampala at the moment, but our field operations are in Kayunga, Buikwe, and Lango sub-region.
Oh, thank you so much, Miriam. And it's a pleasure to have you on the call as well. Joseph, kindly unmute and speak so we can introduce yourself.
Yes, good evening to you, members. I'm glad to be here. Actually, I'm the managing director of State International Limited, a company that deals in trading of dry product food agro input. At the moment, I'm based in Wakiso district, something like 10 kilometers from Kampala.
Thank you. I say you are from Kampala itself, and it's a pleasure to have you as well. More people are joining in, so we would like to hurry up with the introductions. I see Ivan just joined us. Let's have Joseph. Joseph, kindly unmute and speak.
Yes, good evening, members. I'm glad to be here. I'm the managing director of Bosset International Limited, a company that deals in agro input and trading of products, agricultural products, both fresh and dry products like beans, posho, and other fruits and vegetables, to buy them from small farmers to provide them with markets into Kampala.
All right, thank you so much, Joseph. We might not be able to take all introductions because of time, so we just have maybe 2 or 3 more. Then we can continue the introductions in the chat box. Let's have Simon. Simon, please introduce yourself.
I actually prefer to know everybody before we get started. So even if we quickly go through, I think it's better. I'd like to understand who my audience is.
Oh, okay, okay. I was looking at the time, but it's fine if it's okay from your end as well. Simon, please unmute and speak. Simon, okay. While we wait for Simon, Emmanuel, please unmute and speak. We go back to Simon later. Emmanuel,
Yeah, thank you. My name is Emmanuel Twesije. I lead the team at Everland Agritech Limited. Everland basically supports smallholder farmers to acquire quality seeds and organic agro inputs on credit, and they can pay later after harvesting in form of produce, and also connect them to markets via our digital platform. Yeah, I'm in Kampala, but I have a couple of other meetings, so I chose to attend this online as I catch up with the rest which need travel. Thank you.
all right, thank you so much, Emmanuel. Let's have Molly. Molly, kindly unmute and speak.
Hello, my name is Molo Loch. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Harvest Thrive Limited. We're based in Gulu City in the northern region, 330 kilometers away. Harvest Thrive does agricultural inputs. We offer farmer capacity building. We trade in agricultural commodities, both fresh and dry. And we offer tillage services, especially in Karamoja, where they have short rains and would want to hurry and catch up with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Molly. Simon, can you unmute and speak now? Okay. Maybe he's experiencing some difficulties. Let's move to Samson. Samson, kindly unmute and speak.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Kiseka Samson, and I'm the managing director of Hello Mushroom Uganda Limited. And it's a mushroom growing company where we work with the outgrowers to close in the market gaps for mushroom and other healthy products. It's so nice to be here, and I hope to gain a lot from this event.
Thank you, Samson. I don't know, are you joining us from Kampala as well?
Oh, yes, I'm from Kampala, actually in Chewandu, in Kampala, but I had some other engagements. I couldn't make it up to the meeting physically.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, let's have Florence. Please unmute and speak.
Hello.
Hi, Florence.
Hi, I'm Florence Support from Yellow Star Produce and Food Processor. We do high value grain and cereals. We have 3 production lines. We have different types of forages, honey and peanut butter. We work with farmers Right now, I'm on the way from Triandongo, coming to Kampala. I operate from Wakiso. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Florence. I'm not sure I heard it clearly from my end. Esther, were you able to catch what she said?
No, maybe she can put it in the chat.
The chat
Florence, please
box.
type your information in the
Okay, I
chat.
said I'm Florence Okot. We do add value to cereals and crop. We have 3 production lines. We are in the flour, peanuts, butter, and honey. Work with farmers. And we are
Okay.
based in Wakiso, but we work with farmers from northern Uganda. I am traveling from Kliandongo to Kampala. Maybe that's why you can't hear much. Okay.
Yeah, we heard you now. It's much better. Thank you so much, Florence. Let's have Fiona.
Anyone
Fiona,
else?
okay. Thank you. Hi, Fiona, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Fiona Namtebi. I run a business venture called Fifi's Table Limited. It's a home business. We offer delicious baked goods, nutritious meals, and snacks across the country. We are currently in Wakiso, but I'm unable to attend in person because I was a bit up and
Okay.
Thank you so much, Fiona. Ivan, I think you are the last person on the list. Kindly unmute and speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name is called Ivan Owani. I am from Umoro. I am the managing director of Conpaso Enterprise. We have a variety of, mostly we are specialized in animals. We keep pigs, goats, where we are able to employ some of the youth to work with us to help us move on. And we also plant some of the vegetables that help us run the farm, as well as also provide food to the community at affordable price. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ivan. Simon, I saw you dropped a message on the chat box. But if you can unmute, please unmute and speak now. Okay, so I think Esther, Simon dropped in the chat box that he's not able to mute himself, but he dropped that he's working as a CEO of Kanugu Tori company in Southern Western region in Kanugu, and is into the coffee business. And just like the members have introduced themselves, we have reached across African countries, but specifically for today's event, we are based in Uganda here having this discussion. And for the sake of introducing African food chain makers, we are a digital hub that is focused on helping agri-SME scale their agribusinesses through capacity building initiatives. So AFC has a membership hub where we interact and engage with over 8,000 members currently on our database. And these members are spread across 49 African countries. We interact with them weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, through different initiatives and programs, some of which we are familiar with. We have the monthly sessions called the First Thursdays, the Agri-Funding Workshop series, the Open Export series. We also have programs that are targeted on climate change. The most common of our program is the BRACE, which is Building Resilience Against Climate and Environmental Shock. That particular program is to enlighten or educate our community members on how they can become climate resilient to the impact of climate change through the businesses that they do. So it's a 6 weeks interactive program, digital program, where they take on courses on climate change and also have live sessions from industry experts come impact them with knowledge on how they can become climate resilient. After that, they also have some physical components to the program where we have study visits to their individual farms and see if the knowledge they've learned in the virtual classes are being impacted on their business as well. Another of our programs that we do is the Scaling Exports program, which is more specific to exporting. So it helps to train our entrepreneurs on how they can become export ready. We've had testimonials from participants of the programs who had no knowledge of exports, and after gone through the 6 weeks of the export program, they started exporting their product into international markets based on the knowledge and information they got in the export classes. We also have a program that is designated to agri-food women in Africa, one of which Adija is a proud alumni of. That program is called Leading African Women in Food Fellowship and is specifically to empower and encourage our female entrepreneurs in the agri-food space. We all know generally across Africa that most of the agri-food work or initiatives are actually being done by our women, and most of them are not being recognized for the work that they do. So the program is the more of a mentorship program that aims to build a capacity and also to spotlight these female entrepreneurs on the international stage. And it's a 6 month program. The program started back in 2021 and it's almost in the third year of its inception. And members of those programs or participants of those programs have interacted and engaged with industry experts to also scale their businesses and also impact their voices across all other initiatives in Africa. Then internally, we have a membership database, a membership hub, where members can interact with each other via the membership dashboard. They can engage in the marketplace. We have a designated marketplace on the dashboard where members can also spotlight their products, upload their products in wherever they are uploading it from, and they can get buyers from the marketplace on our website. We have our experience sharing sessions in the WhatsApp group where our members can interact and share similar experience or challenges that they face in the agri-food space and can benefit from someone's testimonial or someone's solutions to their problem. Aside from that, we also interact with our community members via newsletters. We have our weekly newsletters, we have our monthly newsletter that we send to our members so they can get updates from the agri-food space through the communication channel that we give to them. And in summary, all we do for our community members is just to help them build their capacity in accessing opportunities in the agri-food space across Africa. At this point, I believe our community members already know majorly what I've said, but for the sake of time, I would just like to introduce you to our community members as well so they can benefit from your vast wealth of knowledge and your expertise in the market space as well. So community members, we have with us Esther, the Esther is an expert in the global marketing industry space, and she's here to share some insights on how our community members can benefit from a wealth of experience. And I would like to share my screen so I can hand over to her and maybe take us through the next 30 to 1 hour. Please confirm that can you see my screen when I start sharing, Esther, so I can hand over the virtual mic to you. Thank you so much.
And also one of the members of my team is listening in as well, Christine, who's over there, just wanted to point out. So I thank her for joining as well. She's really important because she helps me put together these presentations.
Apologies for that. That was a bit an oversight. Yes. I Christine. I think I introduced that to Adija earlier, but I must have missed out from the introductions. Yeah, it's a pleasure to also have you on the call, Christine. And Adija, I don't know if more people are joining us, maybe physically.
Yes, so we're here at the Petite Hotel in Kampala. That's where I'm staying while I'm here. But I don't see my presentation.
Give me a minute, please.
Sure.
Please
While you're doing
confirm
that, I'll just. Okay, great.
Can you see it now?
Yes, I can see it now.
Okay.
Okay. So first of all, thank you very much for coming online side of a meet and greet. I'm here in Kampala. I just arrived in the wee hours Sunday morning, and I'm here with the U.S. State Department, spending time with our folks from the U.S. Embassy, and specifically here on a program to drive greater awareness and business connections between Ugandan companies as well as members in the United States, be it suppliers, be it buyers. And what I'm going to first talk about is some of the things that have changed, what the new dynamics are under our new administration. So I've been doing work like this for the past few years, and I've been fortunate enough. Actually, well, can I control the slides, or you're going to move them for me? What is this name again?
No, sir.
Yeah,
No,
I
sir.
will do that. Yeah, just let me know when to move to the next slide.
Okay, you can move a slide. Okay, so again, I'm going to talk about business expectations and trends, and really, I should add here the American government expectations and trends. So that's what I'm going to first focus on because things have dramatically changed. Next slide. So this is just a little bit about me. I have a company called Foodpreneur, and although I also do work with a lot of other verticals, consumer products, even health and beauty products. I've done a lot of restaurants, startups, oh my goodness, clothing, toys, all sorts of things. Most of them are actual products. And oftentimes some of the basic foundation of what it takes to launch and start a given company in those spheres are fundamentally the same. So I've had the opportunity to go to a few countries now while spending time in Africa. I was in Kenya in May. Last year I was in Botswana. The year before I spent time in Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, Capo Verde. Further back, I spent a lot of time in North Africa, particularly in Tunisia. It's also Morocco last year. And again, my specialty is the food space, more so than any other, and hence why I enjoy being part of African Food Changemakers and some of my affiliations that I have in the United States, such as being with the Association of Food Industries, I'm a member, Specialty Food Association, Peanut and Tree Nut Association, because of my work that I've done with both cashews and macadamia nuts, and to a lesser extent with sesame seeds coming out of Africa. So this is just a little bit about me, MBA marketing, BA in communications. I've been certified in the area of export and import for many years now through the Department of Commerce. And I work with what's called the Small Business Association. And I've helped so many, can you admit, how do you admit this person? Somebody else joining us. I've worked with so many different types of businesses over the years. And prior to that, I used to be a direct importer myself and imported products from Greece. So I know the pain of launching products directly and the trials and tribulations. But even further back, and this dates back before what we call an epiphany here, September 11th, I used to be working for Citibank and American Express in their global sales and marketing area. So it's enabled me to bring kind of a whole wealth of background to what I do today. Next slide, please. This is a little bit of the areas that I focus on when I'm doing training and development work. All sorts of things that need to be adhered to for a successful company, understanding what needs to be done in the legal area, funding, feasibility. So it's a lot of training and development work that I do along those areas. And I've been lucky enough along the way to win some nice awards for the work that I've done. Next slide. But what I'm going to focus on, this is the first trip that I've made with the State Department. I've made several, and the messaging and the focus has greatly changed under the Trump administration. So I actually used to work for a number of years, 10 years, almost 10 years with USAID. I was a contractor, and that's what led me to do some of my most favorite work I've done ever in my whole career. I was on the AGOA advisor for the West Africa Trade Investment Hub. I also worked with the East Africa Trade Investment Hub, and to a lesser extent, the South Africa Trade Investment Hub. And as the AGOA specialist, helping companies adhere to the guidelines and take advantage of AGOA, and then entice American businesses to source out of Africa. So I really was acting as a matchmaker, and I was able to create matches that actually produced millions of dollars worth of trade, mostly for suppliers selling into the U.S. market, particularly commodities such as cashews, macadamia nuts, cocoa, some coffee, sesame seeds, dolls, clothes, honestly, a variety of things, grains, honey, different products. Now, as you're probably all aware, USAID has gone away. Very, very few programs exist anymore. Personally speaking, I feel sad that it went away because I really believe a lot of fantastic work was done under that umbrella. But now things are different. So what we always have to do in any area of our life, we really have to adapt and change and pivot and see where the opportunities can lie with the United States and with Uganda companies to work together. So the new dynamic now is trade, not aid. And I'm here, and my mantra really is, as I'm here with the State Department, is to figure out how can we stimulate the private sector in the United States to invest, do joint partnerships with Ugandan companies to expand trade and bring in more private investment. This is all what is very key to do. Next slide, please. So what are the key drivers for this under the Trump administration? Very clearly to increase U.S. exports and investments in Uganda and across Africa in general, to really have more coming out of the United States. And we need to reduce and eliminate the trade deficits. This requires both countries to really have hands on the wheel, to drive this mutual prosperity, to actually try to open up and drive extraordinary commercial potential in Uganda, to actually see that come through. Next slide, please. Okay, great. We'll keep on that slide. I was really surprised at this statistic. And by the way, this is my first day of, you could say, boots on the ground here in Uganda. And I spent the morning at an organization called Arise. And maybe some of you are familiar with it. It makes leather goods, beautiful purses. I bought a couple purses, shoes, beautiful stuff. What a great story. Agnes has really got an incredible entrepreneurial spirit and was great at using AGOA. Unfortunately, that's gone away officially now in September. But before that, Uganda was removed from AGOA, as you're probably all painfully aware, a couple of years ago, and really had to figure out how you reboot and change. So, having to be adaptable and resilient. And I really saw that in action getting to visit her company today. And then this afternoon, I went to PACID, PACID, which I understand is a relatively new amalgamation of a couple of different government institutions now, melded into one. And I was there with 5 other of my State Department colleagues to really talk about the new paradigm, the new way of how America is approaching international trade with business partners and countries. And what I'm going through right now is actually, Christina and I put this presentation together, and this is what I spoke about there at PASA today. And again, this is mind-blowing to me that only sub-Saharan Africa is less than 1% of our total global trade in goods. And it's been a stagnant figure for over 2 decades. And when you put that against, frankly, the billions of dollars of aid that have flown throughout Africa for decades, it is kind of surprising that only 1% has ended up being total, has been trade in goods. So, and the truth of the matter is Africa actually holds tremendous potential as a large untapped market for two-way trade. It's really underutilized. And when you talk about it, Uganda, you know, you have the name the Pearl of Africa for the incredible fertility of your soil, the natural beauties that you have, the natural resources of minerals, and frankly, the human capital of your people. You know, a large and growing young population that really, whose minds and hearts and skill sets and intelligence needs to be put to the greater good of driving effective change for Uganda and Ugandans. So Uganda has got to take a very proactive and leading role in the new dynamic of how to forge better relationships with America. Now, I'm actually surmising the six strategic pillars. This has actually come from a speech that was made by Ambassador Fitwell in Cote d'Ivoire just this past May. And this is the foundational change that's being put into place. So now throughout our State Departments and embassies, what's happening now, commercial diplomacy is going to be a core focus of our African engagement. And how do we create more of that from a commercial perspective of two-way trade? And important to implement key market reforms as identified by the private sector. Here we're talking more by the U.S. side to be able to encourage some more, interest by American investors to spend time and energy and money into Africa. I will tell you from my years of working with the trade hubs and working with the GOA, welcome, I'm glad you can make it. I hear traffic is horrible. And working with so many American companies, it's actually, that was really something I found very sad too. AGOA was enforced for 25 years, and yet I don't think it was ever marketed as strongly as it should have been, both within African countries and within the United States. I can't tell you how many times importers, buyers, suppliers, they didn't even know about AGOA, to use that as a competitive advantage, and that it often made African goods far more attractive than getting them from another country where these free trade agreements were not in place. But that being said, that's over the hill, that's over and done. Right now, that's no longer the case. And instead, Uganda is facing, or is now taxed with 15% tariffs. That's not as bad as some countries. It's more than some others. But that is the reality right now. So, I don't know why my numbers, these pillars used to say 1, 2, and 3. I don't know how they jumped to say 1, 1, and 1. But anyway, the next key pillar is the infrastructure to be able to focus not on vanity projects. It's really ones that are going to drive incredible change within a given African country, in this particular case, Uganda. You know, I'm just seeing firsthand, you have some other hurdles that some other countries don't have because you are a landlocked country, right? You must, most of the time, a lot of your exports to get to the United States, they're flowing through Mombasa and have to go through Kenya first before it can ever get on a cargo ship. So I know there's been talk about regenerating more railroad trade. You know, what could be done to improve the speed and flexibility? What are some other major infrastructure changes that can just make and drive a stronger partnership? So these are some of the core areas where focus is going to be. Next slide, please. Okay, here the numbers are showing, who knows? Okay, so commercial diplomacy trips, specifically to advance trade and investment. These are basically what you would call hosted buyer missions, where the country, normally what's happening is the country that is trying to entice investment is willing to pay for the travel, hotel costs, most of it, for vetted, serious potential investors and folks to enter into the U.S. market. So that's what that really means, to facilitate that. I've been on a number of hosted buyer missions myself, and it can be an incredibly effective way to do things. It really is. So number 5 is to facilitate and increase connections. There's over 300,000 export-ready U.S. companies that could potentially do business with Uganda, potentially. I mean, there might be a lot of things that really aren't relevant to the Ugandan market or the Ugandan consumer, but that's how many are out there. And this number is also very staggering, though. There's 120 trillion U.S. capital market, that can be tapped into for potential investments to be made partner with Ugandan companies. And then number 6, this is very important. It goes from both sides, to create structural reforms for U.S. trade promotions, project preparation, and financing tools to better support U.S. companies expanding into Africa. So this is really key also. Now, jumping into unique value proposition. This is marketing 101, something that everyone is familiar with. Many of you studied marketing, sales, if you're in business. And it's really that unique value proposition. It's vital for differentiating your product or service in a crowded market. Each of you as business owners needs to do that, both within your domestic market, regional market within Africa, and of course on the global stage. Crafting a very strong UVP means really comprehending your audience. And in some cases, that messaging has to change somewhat depending on who you're speaking to and who you're targeting. Now, what I felt as I was putting together this presentation, UVP, unique value proposition, you could go to the next slide. I look at that acronym and I think, what about the Ugandan value proposition? That's the way you need to think about it yourselves. The UVP, Ugandan value proposition. So what is your UVP for your Ugandan business? And very important for a U.S. investor, buyer, partner looking to expand in the U.S., very strong to be able to identify for them the WIFM. What's in it for me for a U.S. investor or partnership to work for you? So think strong and hard about that. Next slide. Now, here I want to be very frank about addressing some of the barriers for U.S. investors. Business transparency, very important to be able to build trust. Financial transparency. This is trust. I mean, I talk about this all the time. I go back to that. Just proper communications, responding to an email timely. If you have a problem with something not happening right, I used to deal with this all the time with, there would be holdups in deliveries of shipments, let's say of cashews or whatever. They didn't have the right sizes. It was going to take another week to be able to get all the right sizes of the cashews ready. Communicate that to the buyer, because they need to be able to plan on their side that there's going to be a holdup in this coming out. Whatever it is, I felt oftentimes the companies would somehow be hesitant to communicate the bad news. Well, you know what? Not communicating the news at all is worse than communicating bad news. So you have to think about it. It's like you're entering into a marriage, a partner with a U.S. buyer or U.S. company or U.S. investor. You got to be open and honest with each other and really form that firm bond with one another. Financial transparency, really understanding accounting practices, and just making sure that you're talking apples to apples, oranges to oranges. That is what is really critical to make sure that we are speaking the same language. And then being able to meet US standards, whatever it is for your given product. You have to have FDA clearance, for example. You might, what is the spec sheet? What are the specifications for a given product that must meet US standards? I had to go through hoops when I was helping a client import dolls into the United States. I learned so much about what the standards were for toys and dolls to enter into the United States and all the changes we had to make on packaging, some of the product clothes. I didn't understand, learning about fabric. No, here we're talking more about food items, but it goes across the board. Now here it goes into stability. Here I'm talking about stability about your company. How stable are you? How are you growing? Do you have a good management team in place? Do you have folks that you're grooming for advancement within your organization that can take on greater responsibilities? Do you have good HR programs in place, human resources? Do you have a good transition plan in place for any kind of troubles that come your way? Have you already established good banking relationships within Uganda so you've got a cushion of capital to be able to help different times? So how do you present yourself as a very stable, secure, and it's not like everything has to be in place, but a company, U.S. company, is taking a calculated risk on you, on your company, to engage with you. And how do you showcase yourself to the best abilities? Now, political climate, that's more what I was talking about today from a government perspective. Uganda right now is a stable country. You've had a lot of upheaval in the past. Some may actually predate the birth of some of you folks who are on this call. But the political climate is very important. That kind of goes along with reputation. To be very frank, and this is not just for Uganda, but for many countries out of Africa, there's not a lot of knowledge or known about Uganda. Honestly, a lot of Americans are very ignorant about Africa, capitals, history, all sorts of things. And so when I was saying I'm going to Uganda, what do people think about? They, of course, think the positive. They think about gorillas and they think about tourism. Two areas where I think there's a lot of growth potential in your tourism business, by the way. They think about, the history, unfortunately, the brutal history under Idi Amin and rulers in the past, and that's left a mark on what people remember. More recently, the passing of the AHA, the Anti-Homosexual Act, which for many Americans and the companies who try to take a very inclusive approach within their family, and is regardless of the fact that even though the United States has pulled back on what we call DEI initiatives, there's still many, many companies within the United States that look and care for that very, very strongly and want to be able to put make sure that their employees, their customers, that they're inclusive, because that's what helps drive sales. You want to feel inclusive. You want to drive community within your company and with your consumers and with your investors. So that whole reputation of everything is very key. So then, did we lose? Okay, why did the light go out? So negative, I already touched upon this. And then recently, and again, it's a very divided subject within the United States right now. The whole, the whole immigrant issue, deporting of illegal immigrants. And Uganda is frankly in the news right now because they have raised their hand to take in some of the detainees, the illegal immigrants, with a focus ideally of those coming from African countries into Uganda. I know that Uganda right now is hosting, my goodness, maybe close to 2 million refugees, and you have a history of supporting refugees coming into this country and trying to onboard them into your culture and country. And so I think you were looked at as a potential, that you've got a model of how you've been able to deal with refugees in the past. But that is playing out in the US media today as we speak, and that's bringing Uganda awareness, but it may not be as positive as one would necessarily like, depending on where an American falls on the political spectrum. Next slide. All right. So this is where I was just going to go a little bit into some business trends for 2025 and 2026. This might be some interesting takeaways from what's happening from an American perspective. And frankly, a lot of this is truly global. Generative AI applications. Nearly 70% of consumers feel that most businesses will soon be using this technology to improve customer experience, to improve their work performance. I know that I am starting to use AI more than I ever had in the past. I ask it questions. I talk to companies, friends. They're using it, and it is rapidly evolving. The other thing is that, it takes up massive numbers crunching and AI farming and stuff. And it actually is creating some job opportunities throughout Africa, because whole data centers and folks have to be able to go through all this information and be able to house it in a way that makes sense so it could be pulled through very quickly. Next slide. E-commerce growth is persisting post-pandemic. As we know, during COVID, everybody was kind of locked up in their houses, and those who had access to computers, Wi-Fi, all that stuff, shopped online. And that's really changed the way how many people shop in the United States. And even, I know a lot of folks who never went online before, but they were forced to during COVID to order their groceries, to do their shopping. And guess what? They were in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s. And now they're proficient enough to shop online. And that's not changing because they've realized the convenience of it. That's helped driving tremendous growth of companies such as Amazon, for example. So that's going to persist. People have realized the convenience of it. Next. 5G vastly improves data collection and AI capabilities. Just the increase in technology, which is even happening here across the board in Africa too, at honestly rapid rate. What amazes me is pretty much no matter how, if you're not of any affluent means, even if you're really super poor, just about everybody's got a smartphone. They live off of their smartphone. They do their banking, their lives, their connections, everything's on their smartphone. And frankly, you could be sitting in a real rural area of Uganda, but yet you can get on surf the web and you can see how the rest of the world lives. And that can also, though, I think, foster discontentment at home, but maybe also foster a desire to spur that greater change within one's home country. Next. So here in the United States, a lot of people really got comfortable and loved working from home, being in their pajamas all day, being productive on their computer, and probably some of you did the same here in Uganda. But many companies are kind of forcing people to come back in because they have huge leases on these huge buildings and real estate. But it's starting to put pressure on how, a certain amount of people are never going to come back. So maybe some of these office buildings have to be somewhat transformed in other types of, maybe transformed into apartments or living spaces, because honestly, there's a dearth of that affordable housing in the United States right now. Social media, every little company pretty much now has some kind of social media presence. They've got to hire somebody to help. They got to post. People look for what the reviews are. That drives so much more. Influencers, that's stuff that didn't even really exist like some of this 10 years ago. I had my own retail shop. That's another thing that I did in the past. I ran a retail shop. I ran a coffee cafe place. I've done different things, and I used to do paper advertising. I did some stuff online. I did print, and I remember the early days of doing, Facebook ads and things of that nature. Now it's like Instagram, TikTok, you name it. And probably some other up and coming things that may be more popular here, specifically within Africa, that I'm not even aware of. So next page. So companies are really focusing too on sustainability. They want sustainable, closer to, organic products. They want things that don't use as much packaging. And this is really being driven by Gen Z, boomers too, to a certain extent, but it's really millennials really, really, really driving that. So businesses are experimenting with immersive technologies. Next page. So even organizations like Pinterest are doing this. You can see what a chair looks like in your space. Take a picture of it, see where you want to put it in your apartment, your home. This is really powerful stuff, and it really drives sales. It's stuff that wasn't even imaginable, 10 years ago. Innovation, last mile delivery. This is actually an area where, oh my goodness, how do you get packages faster, better to the end? This is still an area where there still needs more development to be done. It's kind of interesting. I live in a kind of teeny little town, rural area. And when I order something on Amazon to come to my house, it normally takes like another 5 days to get to my house. I remember seeing near my home that's a pickup point. And I just drive the several miles to the pickup point, try to put it in with my errands, and I can get most of that stuff within a day or two instead, because they're trying to solve it that way, with lock or pickup, things like that. That's some of the ways. Next page. Next. Okay. Customer experience. Oops, just go back. Customer experience. Improve customer experience and cost savings through AI. So this is also too, I'm wondering, I did some work in Botswana last year. And one of the things too, I passed through South Africa. I haven't really spent time so much in South Africa. But they're known, they've been incredibly successful for call center management. From thousands of young, educated South Africans are getting at least their first jobs in call centers because they speak, obviously, English, taught the customer skill sets, and it can be, in some cases, a pathway to something better. So I don't think Uganda's really done that, really engaged in creating call centers. It's something where, that started off in the United States, a focus on the United States, call centers coming out of India and the Philippines, for example, two other English-speaking areas of the world that were natural fits. Now, India really, and the Philippines were able to leapfrog a lot with that because they were more advanced earlier on from a technology standpoint, particularly India, to have the infrastructure to be able to support large call centers, the technology, the IT, computers, yada, yada, all that. And the same for parts of the Philippines. That's been why that hasn't really been, I think, a growth area, potential job opportunity area for many countries in Africa, but that's starting to change. So that's something else I would think, how can you get a piece of the customer service slice of business coming out of the United States? Next. Now, I think I'm going to kind of just quickly zip through this because I want to leave some of our remaining time for questions and just talking in general. And but these, and I can send this, and this presentation can be shared with the members. But, you know, when you're trying to export to the United States, these are all the types of forms that have to be completed. And traditionally, the top three are what you're responsible for. But I will tell you right now that many buyers are doing what's called DDP with the Incoterms because they don't want any responsibility. They don't have to worry about what the tariffs are. They're putting all the onus on the suppliers. So moving forward, a lot of times you've got to know all this stuff. Next slide. Okay, FDA compliance for food and beverage. Next slide. Again, this is really detailed stuff, but these are all the things that food and FDA regulates. Okay, probably familiar with that. So FDA, what they look at facilities that produce, store, or otherwise handle products that are registered with the FDA. Prior notice of incoming shipment is provided to the FDA. Imported food products are subject to FDA inspection at U.S. port of entry. And the FDA can decide to detain these products. They can ship them back. They can even destroy them. I had the horrific bad fortune when I was an importer directly. I had a whole container of honey bars destroyed. Honey bars rolled over because they thought it had little bits of burnt sesame seeds in them. They're the honey bars that were mixed with sesame seeds made in Greece, came from Greece, and they thought it was like inanimate plastic. We had to spend all this money for, and mind you, all the tests and everything like that, if the FDA asks you, you paid for it. At the end of the day, they wouldn't allow it in. I had other holdups on products too. And when you're dealing with food products, that could be the kiss of death because that's a living, breathing thing. You have a shelf life to it, and every day that goes by, you're losing your shelf life. So I'm not going to go through this, but this is actually telling you step-by-step instructions for registering. It's something some of you can manage on your own. If not, there's organizations out there that do it. And to be frank, my company, Foodpreneur, also helps you do that. I was the go-to person at the Trade Hub to do the FDA registrations for the companies. So I would walk you through it. So, but it is something that I do privately. Our company does is to set you up on and get your FDA registration through and done. But these are all the sections of things that you have to complete. You can keep going. You have to do it every 2 years. Okay, and then you have to get a DUNS number. That's another area of complexity. You have to do prior notice submission. And you do have a shipment coming in. Normally that's done by the buyer, but with DDP, you got to keep on track of it if they're asking you to do it all the way through. Next slide. All right. A little bit, just touching very quickly on requirements in this area. Next slide. Product labeling requirements. This is actually right on the FDA website. This is nothing that's not hard to find. Just have, but now the new labeling requirements are in place. So this is all some of the stuff that has to be adhered to. Next slide. And again, you can see the difference between the new one, the big calories, just in your face, telling you how many calories you're eating, and the old version. Next. Private labeling for the US market. How to make African products attractive to buyers. These are all things that can help make your product look more attractive to an American buyer and investor. All those key things. Retail packages and containers of foods have to bear very specific placement of information, font size, identity of the product. This is where you want to make sure if you're planning to sell a retail ready product in the United States, that you get proper guidance so you don't waste money or have things turned back or that you get fined because you created labels that do not meet the minimum standards. These are all the allergens that must appear on a label if anything is included. Next. Okay, some of the key things, you have to be able to have transparency and to be able to trace back where food is manufactured. Next. Okay, exporting. Real quick, we'll flip through this. Formal entry and informal. Okay, so formal entry for any shipment valued at more than 2,500. Informal entry requires a customs broker for a shipment of any value if it contains controlled substances. Okay, that could be like alcohol and things like that. Go on. Next. Okay. Licenses and permits are required for the following types of products. I don't know if anybody, didn't seem like anybody was doing alcohol. I know a couple of people said they raised cattle. Biological materials, a lot of times fruits and nuts fall under this. So next. These are some of the required documentation for formal entry. Next. Commercial invoice. Oh my God, you can get killed by this. You think at the end, you know, oh, I'm just going to add a couple more things. You can get really dinged by if they catch it, open it up. And they could be a real pain in the butt about this, to be honest, even refuse entry, all of it, not just the extra stuff that was put on there. Kind of depends if you got somebody who's having a bad day or not at customs, serious. So you don't want to do anything that's going to draw unwarranted or unneeded attention to you. Okay, so again, some of the important things that must be on everything. Next. Entry manifest. The harmonization code, I just want to touch upon that. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but that's like a global standard to be able to look up your harmonization code and make sure that you're meeting what's the standard allowable for the United States. And if there's any additional tariffs or restrictions, sometimes there's quotas, like there's sugar quotas, for example. There's quotas on certain types of products to enter into the United States. Next slide. Informal, a lot of times is when you're bringing stuff in for a trade show, you know, really not for sale. You'd be going through the informal process. Next. Okay, clearing U.S. Customs. Oftentimes now, you, even the supplier, are taking on these responsibilities. Next. Penalties and seizure could be really, 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 really big. So if you should be proactive. If you know that something ended up not being done right, you should probably proactively address it. If they know that you come there and say, I'm so sorry, a lot of times they're happy you did it, but they know, figure out that you knew it and you're just trying to sneak it through and not say anything, they may really slap your hand with fines. Okay. Clerical errors or omissions, but negligent or gross negligence, you could really get hit pretty bad. Next, importing skincare. I know we're more food, but you know, things like shea butter and things like that kind of cross the lines. And I'm not going to really focus on this, but if there's anybody within the group, because I didn't really hear anything about this area, but this whole section goes more into depth. You can just flip through this, just go through these slides. Just keep going through these slides. It's really all pertinent to cosmetics and skincare. Keep going. Okay. Stop here. So USDA organic labeling regulations. This is pretty critical. This is a big call out and very important and a key driver if you've got products that can be certified organic. I recommend that you're able to do so. I realize there's a cost involved, but it may offset the greater demand that your product may warrant then, and a higher price because you're organic. So it's they're very stringent about this. Okay. So when it says 95% organic, so if you have salt, spices, things like that that aren't necessarily organic, you can get away with that. Okay, next. I don't think anybody's doing alcohol beverages. That's a whole other area. We can just skim through all this. Let's go fast. And we're not going to talk about apparel. And I think kind of at the end then if I don't talk about apparel. Tim, that's one thing I want to mention. Sadly, de minimis is ending August 29th, or I think now they moved to September 1st. You were able to get small shipments into the United States under $800 without any additional tariffs on it. Now they're all subject to duties and taxes at the border. It doesn't matter. It could be a $10 tchotchke item, and it's going to get a tariff put on it. Yeah, that's that. So, so we can go out of that, and I'm open to taking questions and things like that. But I also want to say we did have 2 more people who managed to brave the traffic and show up in person. So I just want to turn the computer towards them. So we know who we help. And I'm sorry, I need full refreshments for you. We have some cookies and some
Hi, Ignatius. Yeah, we can actually see you from your end as well. Thank you for joining us physically and virtually. Please introduce yourselves.
So I'm Ignatia Samuza. I am the co-founder at Agribusiness, where we have a support company that is enabling farmers to domesticate a plant that is called the golden grape. Although it's very good for the resilience aspect. And we are looking forward to adding value to this program to exploring. And also, I am a senior program associate for the Leadership Academy for the agribusiness sector. And yeah, that is where I'm with my colleague. Yes,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Esther. That was an in-depth knowledge and information shared with community members. And for those on the call, I believe we've benefited so much from the knowledge Esther has shared, and it's time to have an interactive session. If you have questions, if you have feedback, it's time to discuss with Esther. I think that's the purpose of this session with Esther. So she has given us a presentation, and the floor is open for questions, for conversations, for discussions, and for feedback. So if you have questions for Esther, please use you can raise your hand so we can
Yes.
unmute you and speak. Thank you.
grants. In the past where you could actually apply for grants. So what I'm telling folks is, okay, no longer grants are available, but the same type of rigor has to be put towards finding an investor, working with an investor, the types of questions and information that would need to be answered and completed would also be the same. So, so that's the case to consider. This is evolving. What are the investment? The government, our government now is trying to get Americans more interested in investing, have it be the businesses that are doing the investing and business money put out there versus government money. Okay, that's one of the key things. So I talked about buyer mission trips. So you could be proactive perhaps in that. If you have done research, it's so easy to do so much research on the internet, and you have an export commodity and you're willing to share to set up some type of investment, give some of the shares out for your company, then you need to maybe be proactive to do some research to see who in the United States do I want to talk to, engage with, and then find that. And I think there's organizations now like Passive, from having met with them today, that they realize and it's a two-way street, because there's things that your government will like out of the U.S. government, and there's things the U.S. government wants out of the Ugandan government. So we're doing, a dance, a discussion, and to be able to talk to some of your officials, government representatives too, might be able to help facilitate that and invite these people or companies, even for type of buyer's mission. But you have to really have, it goes back to the UVP. You have to have a very strong UVP to drive that interest to come over here to the United States. Okay. Does that answer your question? Whoever asked it, George Asindua?
Yes, it's clear. Thank you, Esther. It's clear. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Well, you know what? Unfortunately, I see, all right, Samson Conseka. The question is, as per our status in Uganda, would want to see if there's by any means or chances that the AGOA sanctions would be lifted to ease penetration of products, especially from startups. Also, if there are, bring it down, credible networks of US-based companies that you can link us to facilitate these trade connections. So, unfortunately, AGOA is expiring next month in September. And I think it's a shame. I mean, even if it had been extended, let's say it was successfully lobbied, I just don't think enough lobbying was done. I don't think it was in place for 25 years, and somehow it just was never fully utilized to the should have been. And the government right now is not honoring those. If there are other trade preferential trade agreements that are in place, it really doesn't matter. They're not being honored. So unfortunately, the sad answer is just don't expect AGOA. Everybody doesn't have AGOA anymore in sub-Saharan Africa. So you're going to then, one of the things I did talk about earlier today was the fact, okay, so Uganda has 15% tariffs. Brazil's been hit with 50. And we gave the example of coffee. Americans drink a lot of Brazilian coffee. It's a natural place for exports for coffee to come into the United States. You have right now a window of opportunity for those of you maybe in the coffee sector or those in the coffee sector, that even with 15% tariffs, you might be more competitively priced than who they've been sourcing through traditionally from Brazil. That could change. From all the administration may strike a deal with Brazil, and next thing you know, maybe there'll be 15% tariffs. and that window is kind of gone. But while it's there, anyone who's in the coffee side, I'd say, should be very aggressive about trying to find buyers for Ugandan coffee or trying something new, because there's a 35% difference in the tariff structure, and that could be a good arbitrage play right now. Okay. We also need to know those passions because it's something new to the majority of us. How could we join them? I'm actually not sure. I just also learned about this organization recently as part of my trip here, but they have a website, and I would actually recommend that you go on their website and look to see how you can be a part of it. They're supposed to represent you, Ugandan businesses. They've been traditionally focused on driving exports of Ugandan products across the board, not just agricultural, but there's a very strong emphasis on agricultural. And that was one of the key points that we discussed during our meetings today. So I would go on the website and see, who might be, what they have to, you're their constituency, so they've got to be catering to you. So yes, the recorded presentation available to everyone, and I'll share the presentation as well. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sorry. Mine is actually a comment, realizing the fact that we are getting to recognize the reality that there is great reduction in the funding landscape. Many donors are reducing aid, and that should be viewed as an opportunity for the private sector to take lead and fill the void. Last year, I participated in the Market Systems Symposium, and every other development organization mentioned the importance of private sector engagement. And yet, in the House, we, the representatives of the private sector, were like just 5%. So if the private sector has the opportunity to drive economy and make changes, then we should view the private sector and see ways of uplifting them to a position where we're able to fill the void. Our greatest challenge as private sector is access to finance. Most African countries are facing this. From our interactions, you can clearly see that we have the innovations, we have the zeal, we have all the ideas, but it's very difficult for us to get the funding that put our ideas into reality. Back in Uganda here, the rates are really high. For you to get a loan, it means you have to trade something, you need collateral. Many businesses don't have that. So these are some of the things that people at position of authority and with some possibilities should front this and make these changes possible. Thank you.
Extremely valid points. I don't know. One of the things that's in place in the United States, and I don't think you have the exact type of thing, something great. Again, I'm just throwing out as a suggestion and something that could be raised to the proper folks. It's called the Small Business Administration in the United States. It too is going through some tremendous changes under the current administration, but traditionally, I mean, I've been working with the Small Business Administration since 2007. I was a recipient of a lot of support from it when I was an importer, training and development, helping me with access to capital. They didn't do the exact lending, but to have access to capital. And then there's something called SBA loans, which basically the government is backing the loan as the for any defaults, last resort, but it gives a level of comfort for a bank, a more traditional bank, to take a chance on a new business, to lend them the needed capital, knowing in the worst case scenario. But they really keep on the back of these companies, by the way, to be able to qualify for an SBA, what they call 503B loan. 503, yeah. They're not easy to come by, but if something could be put in place in Uganda, that could be really beneficial for you. And I don't know if there's anything here. I'm meeting with other organizations during the week. So just to give you a taste of where I'm going, and they're keeping me very busy through the embassy. So today, Monday, I visited HACID and I visited Arise. Tomorrow, I'm going to Enterprise Uganda. And then in the afternoon, I'm going to the Uganda Investment Authority. I'm speaking at most of these places, all these places. Then I'm going to meet the Shona group, and I'm going to meet women who have graduated from the Women Enterprise Program, the alumni. Then I'm off to what?
Academy of Women Enterprise.
Yes. Private Sector Foundation, Uganda. It's Wednesday. And then I go Thursday to Makerere University, but to the business school, which I understand is called MOOBS. MOOBS. Okay. So I'm going there. And then I'm going to the Graça Mikhail Foundation.
It's at the American Center.
I'm sorry?
At the American Center.
Okay. Oh, yes, at the American Center. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to be actually visiting with the ambassador later. And then Friday, I'm going again to the American Center. Yes. Then I'm going to visit a company called Alosha Organics Production. And then Saturday, I'm going to go visit Zara Foods, if anyone's familiar with Zara Foods. No. They're dried fruit. I've got a client who's interested in dried fruit, and I'm visiting Gorilla Coffee. Then on Sunday, I finally get to do something cultural.
Where are you going?
While I'm here, I'm going to go visit the Uganda Road National Theater Artisan Market. And I'm open to anywhere else I could go, my limited time. But then at night, I am flying back my journey to the United States. Huh?
Uganda Road is
I'm sorry?
Uganda Road is nice. It's a craft village and art.
It's okay. That's where they're taking me. So that's that. That's where I'm going during the days that I'm here in your country. So, how can matchmaking opportunities be accessed? Again, I think this goes back to maybe some of these organizations that I mentioned that, put some fire under your representatives here to help facilitate that. I have a question.
Yeah, it's just a comment. It's just a comment, and the comment is about the preparedness of the preparedness of startups to receive the financing that they seek. From experience, I've realized that although funding could be an issue, but also the preparedness of these startups to absorb or to accept this funding is not there. So I feel like startups are not doing enough in terms of putting up the structures and systems that are required so that if a scenario of financing comes, they can easily absorb it, or they are actually fundable or investable.
That is so important.
Yeah.
That goes back to having a strategy of a small business development center.
Exactly.
That helps with that really business planning, understanding accounting, understanding how to do Excel spreadsheets, understanding costing, understanding how to hire employees. it's not like you understand, it's not like you learned this growing up. You need a proper environment to do it properly.
Yeah.
And to adhere to really to global standards. Private enterprises, there's so many private schools here. I guess I'm right.
Yeah.
I have a question.
There's so many, all I do is I drive down the streets and there's so many private schools here, children from preschool, preparatory schools, there's some technical schools. I think that's a business opportunity. You know, some of this should be taught within the true university environment, but I think entrepreneurship skills for budding entrepreneurs, thinking on your feet, that mindset change, I think that is an opportunity for entrepreneurs here in Uganda who have an educational business background combined, maybe to combine forces together, put together a few people who know different segments, somebody who's very good on the accounting side, someone who can address HR, someone who can address logistics. And you form that school of entrepreneurship. I don't know if that exists here in Uganda, but I see plenty of other schools. And even if there are one or two, it's not enough. There's definitely room for more. I addressed this in Botswana last year. I was at an entrepreneurial conference where I was invited to speak, particularly about mindset change. And believe it or not, Botswana has put into place a ministry of mindset change for entrepreneurship because they have to change their dependency on natural diamonds. It has fallen drastically because of the advent of lab produced diamonds that are a fraction of the cost. So their revenues have dropped sharply, and they've done a lot for their of really raising the standard of living over the years for people in Botswana, remarkably so. But if they're not in a position to do that anymore because the revenue stream is drying up. So to quickly start to developing other revenue streams, and they're wise enough to realize they got to start running now. And to be frankly speaking, under the new paradigm of how Uganda needs to interact with America and honestly, anyone, any country, could be Europe, it could be other countries in Africa, is you have to be creating that entrepreneurial mindset. And you got a lot of young people to develop that with. You got a lot of probably people who've got some good corporate experience or government experience under their belt. So they have some gravitas and connections. And I think honestly, that could be a wonderful business opportunity in the making to help make that happen. That would be my recommendation. So any last questions? Because I wanted to.
Yeah, Esther, I have a question. Do you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question actually. I've been following about the requirements. You've been listing all the requirements necessary for exportation. Like Arya said, I am basically dealing in dry fruits and I've faced a challenge. Initially, we had registrations for these requirements with the Uganda National Bureau of Standards. And we went through all the steps and acquired our stamp that authorized us to proceed with production and selling on the local market. However, as time went on, we came to realize that the product we are dealing in basically was selling more to the international markets. So we had to rethink on how we can join the international markets. And on inquiring from the Uganda National Bureau of Standards officers on what requirements we need to move into exportation, we found that there is a lot of gap between the Ugandan organizations that authorize us trade with the international requirements. So I think as you laid out your program for the week, I had you meeting a lot of these authorities. Maybe if you could help us talk to these guys to align on how we can maybe mitigate the standards between the ones that are operating and maybe to be in line with the international markets, because it becomes challenging and expensive to basically have the standards in Uganda, and then still you need to redo or come up with new standards for the international markets. This is getting so challenging for some of us, the small companies, that it is limiting us from operating, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, that's it.
Okay, I'll bear that in mind. There's a disconnect between some of the local standards and international standards. In some cases, you might, again, I can't speak to everything. Oftentimes that is the case. Sometimes because it's not traveling far, it's local. There's some reasons why you don't have to be so crazy about the stand. It makes sense to have sometimes things be a little different versus what has to be the standard on an international basis. So, but I'm going to bear that in mind. And the last question I'm going to answer is, given the current food policy reality within the US, how confident are you that there isn't going to be more shifts negatively, especially in areas of tariffs or other non-tariff barriers? Oh my goodness, unfortunately, I do not have a crystal ball. I cannot predict, and I don't know the answer to that. I really can't tell you. One lever that I think could affect this to eventually two things I think that could affect to potentially lessen tariffs is some of the affected countries, if they start to actively solicit more imports from the United States into their country, be very proactive about that, about opening up the doors to US imports coming in and showing that, so the trade deficit switches, then that country may be rewarded with lower tariffs as a result. That's kind of because then you've got, it's a very transactional government that we're dealing with now. The idea is to reduce those trade deficits. The other thing that could start to put pressure on that is just the reaction of the US consumers. Because right up to now, or businesses, right up to now, the impact of the tariffs, even though billions of dollars of additional revenues have flown into the government from the tariffs, it's mostly been the companies still eating it, the Walmarts of the world, the Targets of the world, the importers that I deal with, they're eating most of it, and they haven't been passing it on to their suppliers or end consumers because they were hoping it was only temporary, or they have agreements in place and contractually they couldn't even raise the prices, all this stuff. But that's soon going to change. And guess what? That ripple effect is slowly going to have increased pricing happen. And it's like almost like a death by a million cuts. Have you ever heard that expression? You died by a million cuts. Well, that's going to start to happen with the US consumer. But all of a sudden they see, oh my God, 3 months ago I paid $10 for this. Now it's $10.70. $10.70. It doesn't seem that much, but then they go back, they buy another 3 months. Oh my God, the thing's $11. That's a slow incremental increase. And if particularly Americans on a fixed income who don't have, let's say, as much leeway to absorb this, they'll get more vocal, and companies will start to get more vocal because then they aren't being competitive either. So I think that's the other level. That's what I would see within my little crystal ball, since you're asking me. But other than that, who knows? It's a very different administration in so many aspects. It's very hard to predict what might be done or what other things could come across. So what does that mean? It means there's uncertainty. Life is uncertain. I mean, that's the point. So you have to be flexible and adaptable and look to see, even though you may be in an adverse situation, how can you take advantage of it? Again, I talked about the area of Brazil and coffee. There's other countries out there that have it rougher than you guys. So, how can you make the best of this situation? How can you just, bottom line, just be competitively priced, whether there's tariffs or not? How can you look to get the money from a U.S. investor? How do you focus on being attractive? So at the end of the day, if you have a strong partnership, whether there's tariffs in place or other non-tariff barriers, you've got a good partner already in the United States to be able to to deal with that together. That's kind of how I would tell you to address it. Do we have a trade desk at the U.S. Embassy in Kampala where we can explore this partnership and network opportunities at U.S. opportunity? I want to say the answer to that is yes. All that kind of stuff is in the works because commercial diplomacy is now the lay of the land, so to speak. So I would say the answer to that is yes, or soon to be yes. I just don't know the details. And that's a great question. And actually, I think at the end of the day, a lot of times you can save all this. There might be an option where we can save all the questions. So, I mean, the physical chats. So that's a great question, and I will ask that of my colleagues. All right, on that note, I'm going to sign off here. And I really appreciate all of you that came on board to listen and to engage and ask questions. And again, it's a pleasure to be part of African Food Changemakers. And I'm really happy to be here in Uganda, and hopefully it will not be my last trip. And that's that. So I hope you found this presentation and dialogue useful. I just want to spend my last, remaining moments that we have here with a couple of the folks that braved the horrific traffic to get here. So, thank you
so
again,
much, Esther.
and thank you for hosting.
Thank you so much, Esther. Thank you so much, Ambassador Jack.
Get rid of anything that we're saving. So do not. The other thing too, I want to save the AI notes because I don't know if you can do it on your end. Yeah. If you look at more, you can save AI companion. I love this. So what topics have been catch me up, see if it's going to work. And then I copy paste and save all this stuff. So people can drop off, but we got to capture this and save it to your computer. I'll put you in charge and you can go back and ask questions. See all this stuff. So then if you go, have you used this feature before? Then you can go all the way down to the bottom and then you can save it to like a Word document or something, or just to an email. And then you can ask other questions like, what's the app? Do you see, did you copy it? Go all the way, no, go all the way down. And it just see that little thing and copy it all. And you can stick it in an email. So gentlemen, do you have something to eat? I'm going to eat something. I'm so hungry. And so you're with the school? You're with the, I'm sorry, what?
Two-way traffic.
Stewart?
Two-way traffic.
Two-way traffic.
Esther, thank you so much for your time. And Esther, really appreciates your time and contribution so far in today's discussion. For our members on the call, definitely we would share the presentation, the meeting recording, and whatever other resources that will be available for you to leverage on. This will be shared with you first thing tomorrow morning. And we want to appreciate your time and commitment to joining this meet and greet with Esther. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night rest from our head.